Hello brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode of a conversation with our sister Grace, who is going to talk about her life in one prophetic church, where she served the prophet in every aspect, even including romantic aspect of the prophet's life. And after it, what really happened to her life? If you are new here, we welcome you and say, thank you for coming. This is Dangerous African Confessions HD, where we bring to you confession stories to help you make your own informed decisions about your walk with God and to help you live a purposeful life. Without taking much of your time, let us go and listen to the story. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. Also do like and share this video, and hit the notification bell so you will be notified anytime we upload new videos.
My name is Grace. I want to share my story with you, not because I wish to seek sympathy, but because I believe someone out there might be going through something similar to what I went through. And if you are, maybe my words can offer you some kind of solace, or at least help you find your way out of the darkness, as I did. My dear, I have always believed in God. I've always had a strong faith, something that I inherited from my parents. My mother would say, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. And I did. I trusted. And I trusted my prophet too. You see, my dear, it all started many years ago, when I was a young woman, full of hope and dreams. I imagined my life as a peaceful journey, where one day I'd meet someone to share it with. Someone who would love me, someone who would call me his own. But for reasons unknown to me, that never happened. Not for a long time. I had always sought advice from my prophet. He was a man of great wisdom, or so I thought. He seemed to understand the intricacies of life, and everything I asked him, whether it was about my love life, my career, or my spiritual path, he always had an answer. When I asked him about my struggles to get married, he would say, I should have patience, for God has a perfect time for me. He's preparing someone special for me. His words always felt like comforting to my weary heart, and for a while, I believed them. But as the years went by, I noticed something strange. Despite my deep faith, my heart continued to ache, my loneliness deepened, and my hope slowly turned to frustration. My brother, I started dating, believing that each new relationship was the one I'd been waiting for. But time and time again, things fell apart. The man would seem perfect, caring, loving, everything I'd hoped for, but then it would end. Sometimes they'd drift away without any explanation, and at other times, something would just shift. It was as though an invisible force was pushing us apart. And yet, I never questioned my prophet. He always had an answer for me, it's not your time yet, or God is testing you. I believed him because I wanted to. I needed to. The alternative, that something might be wrong or that I was being deceived, was a thought I could not bear. I had always believed that guidance would come from trusted spiritual leaders, and he had always seemed so sincere. But what I didn't realize was that every word he spoke was a chain, tying me closer to him while keeping everyone else away. You see, I never knew it at the time, but that prophet, who I thought had my best interests at heart, was actually the one keeping me bound to a life of solitude and confusion. The reason why this thing cut me deeper than anything I have experienced in this life is because, for years, I believed every word he said. Every time a relationship fell apart, I felt it was my fault, as though I wasn't strong enough in my faith or that I wasn't patient enough. But deep down, something inside me started to wonder, why does this always happen to me? Why is my life so different from everyone else's? Why was I being tested so much more than others? My dear, I actually would watch as people around me found love, built families, while I remained stagnant, unable to break free from this seemingly endless cycle of disappointment. And all along, my prophet, with his calm demeanor and wise words, reassured me not to worry. Because God has a plan for my life, and it will shock everyone. As a believer in the faith, I wanted to trust that everything was happening for a reason. But, as the years dragged on, I began to feel something darker lurking beneath my trust in him. There was a weight that I couldn't place, a heaviness that I couldn't shake off. My dear, it all hit me hard when I turned 30. I felt as though time was running out. I had invested so much into this belief, into following his advice, that I didn't know where to turn. I went through the motions, constantly seeking reassurance, constantly praying, constantly waiting. But nothing changed. On top of it, I spent so much money, more than I care to admit, on spiritual cleansing sessions, prayers for marriage, and offerings. The prophet would tell me that I needed to give more, to cleanse myself of past relationships, to sacrifice more for my future. Each time I questioned the outcomes, he would give me a different reason. It's not time yet, you need to let go of past hurts, God is working in mysterious ways. But you see, what troubled me the most was that while I was giving everything I had, emotionally, financially, spiritually, my life didn't seem to improve. If anything, it got worse. He had no idea what it was like for me to fight every single day just to make ends meet, while he lived a comfortable life with his wife and children. I would watch him post pictures of his family, the perfect life he had, and I'd wonder if there was something wrong with me. Why was I the only one who seemed to be stuck in this perpetual struggle? You see, it became like everyday torment for me because I really sacrificed a lot for him and the ministry. And if not for anything at all, I should be the one benefiting from the grace upon his life. But then, I, the very person who will support him in times of need, financially and all that, I will be struggling to find happiness in my life. My dear, let me take you back, so you will understand certain things. From the very beginning, the prophet made me believe that my journey towards marriage, financial success, and spiritual growth required sacrifices. It was never enough just to pray or trust in God, and so, I had to actively prove my faith. Every piece of advice he gave me came with a task, a mission to fulfill. Some of which were financial contributions. He often told me that in order to manifest blessings, I needed to make sacrifices, not just of the spirit, but also of material wealth. He said that money was a conduit for divine favor, a way to cleanse my path. He would ask me for donations, for the church, or for special prayer sessions. At first, it seemed harmless, just small amounts here and there, which must say that I happily gave, believing I was sowing seeds for my future. But over time, the amounts increased. He would tell me that the more I gave, the closer I would be to receiving God's favor in my life. He will always tell me that I should remember, the kingdom of heaven is built on the foundation of faith, and faith requires action. So, like that, I gradually began to deplete my savings. I even sold my personal items, jewelry, and even my car, all at his suggestion, to show my devotion. But it never seemed to be enough. And after every sacrifice, if I go to him for answers, he would tell me that God was preparing me for something bigger, and that my breakthroughs were just around the corner. I can tell you that there are even some things that he made me do, that I had to borrow money from friends. I will say that he knew exactly what buttons to push to keep me loyal, to keep me believing that my struggles were part of a higher purpose. When I felt defeated, he would comfort me, telling me that I was chosen for something special. He explained that my loneliness was a test, that God wanted me to become stronger, purer, and more spiritually aligned before I could enter into a blessed marriage. But there was something more sinister at play. You see, every time I faced emotional turbulence, whether it was a failed relationship, a personal setback, or simply a moment of doubt, he was there, guiding me back into his fold. It felt like a comfort, a protection, but he was also ensuring I stayed within his spiritual grasp. I don't know if you understand what I am trying to communicate. You see, the trick I have come to realize, in most of these prophets' dealings is that they one way or the other encourage you to cut ties with friends and even family members. Some of them will even go as far as telling you your mother or relative who they feel is strongly attached to you is a witch or does not have your interest at heart. And by so doing, you will now tend to trust only in his words. So, by so doing, your world will become smaller and smaller by the day. Before you realize, it is only him and the church. You see, my dear, I must say this truth here, it wasn't until much later that he made the ultimate promise that sealed my blind faith. That promise was that, when the time was right, he would divorce his wife, and he would marry me. I never knew that I was being taken advantage of at that time. You see, he had a wife and children, yet he often told me that the divine reason I was meant to stay close to him was because I was being prepared for a unique role in his life. In moments of vulnerability, he would share his struggles with me, how his marriage was not as fulfilling as it should be, how his wife didn't understand his spiritual calling, and how he longed for a true companion who could understand him on a deeper level. And these things made me to feel more important in the church. I remember he telling me that his marriage was a sacrificial union, one he had entered into because of duty, not because of love. He told me that his heart was truly with me, and that one day, when he was ready to break free, I would be the one to stand by his side. He told me that he needed me to be patient, because this marriage will be unlike anything I have ever known. I will be by his side as his true partner, and we will build something greater together. So over time, I kept telling myself that this would be my reward for the years of patience, of devotion. I kept imagining the life I would have with him, picturing the future that had been promised to me. Looking back, I realized how naive I had been. What I didn't know was that his promises were never meant to be fulfilled. I had never been waiting for the right time to marry me, he was just keeping me bound to him for his own benefit. By ensuring that I remained emotionally, spiritually, and financially dependent on him. Why I couldn't get this whole thing during that time, still is a mystery to me, my dear. You see, he and his own family life was intact, but on the other hand, he wanted me to believe that I was his future wife, which truly I believed it. Knowing very well that this belief would keep me in a perpetual state of waiting. He knew that I was someone who would give everything for this dream, everything for the promise of a future together. And in return, he continued to drain my resources, my energy, and my sense of self-worth. The truth is that it was never about love. It was about control. Someone might ask about why I couldn't know these things were not going to happen. On the other hand, as I blame myself for all the things I went through, there is another thing I later got to know about the kind of spiritual directions he was giving me. With me, I thought I was doing them to clear the way for me. I never knew that I was being bound to him anytime I go through such directions with him. I came to realize that each ritual wasn't about opening doors to my future, they were chains, silently binding me to him. Some of them were the midnight prayer vigils I did with him. Also, I went through the ritual cleansings where he would say that my soul needed to be cleansed in order to receive the full blessings of marriage and financial prosperity. He explained that my past relationships, past mistakes, and negative energies were blocking my path. He advised me to conduct specific cleansing rituals, using water, salt, and herbs, which he would provide. The worst of it all is the anointing rituals, where he will anoint my body with oil. Like I said, I was naive and desperate. And I believed in all the things that he was doing at first. Besides, he had already seen my nakedness, slept with me. So, anointing my whole body was not something I wasn't going to allow. They were specially prepared oils, which he would provide. The oils, he said, were a way of aligning myself with divine favor. He explained that the oils were sacred, infused with spiritual power that would attract the right energy to my life. Please, anyone listening to me, if you are a lady and you've been through these things, I plead with you to run for your dear life. Why I began to take actions was that I started having feeling that the oils were more than just a physical ritual, they were another tool to link my energy to the prophets. This is because, anytime I will go through the anointing or any directions he will give, I wasn't opening doors to prosperity or love, I was opening myself to his influence. Each oil-based ritual tied me even closer to him, unknowingly binding my spiritual essence to his. My dear, I have really suffered in his hands. He has used me, my body, my money, and my time. What I thought were divine instructions for opening the doors to marriage and financial success were actually carefully crafted steps that slowly bound me to him, not just emotionally, but spiritually. You see, I came to understand later that, by tying my spirit to his through these rituals, he ensured that no other man would ever be able to love me, and no financial prosperity would ever come without him. So, all this while, I was a pawn in his spiritual game, knowing very well that I would never question the path he laid out for me. One evening, I started questioning whether I was doing something wrong. Was I really meant to be stuck like this? Why did the prophet's prayers always feel so distant? Why was I sacrificing so much, and yet, nothing was happening? That same evening, I called onto a friend and he told me about some old man he knows who might be able to tell me what is wrong with me. Because of what I have been through in my prophet's hands, I didn't want to go initially. But then, upon further discussions with my friend, I decided to go with him to see this man. I must say that he is not a pastor. He deals with herbs and has a big compound to himself, where he has grown most of the trees he uses for his healing and spiritual works. I was desperate for answers and also got the shock of my life when I sat in front of the man. When I first spoke to the man, he listened to my story, quietly and patiently. He didn't rush me, and that, in itself, was different from everything I had known with the prophet. The prophet always spoke with authority, told me what to do, what not to do, and where to go next. But this man, he just listened. He asked me questions. He let me reflect. And to be honest, my dear, as I spoke, a feeling I hadn't felt in years began to emerge, a feeling of freedom, of lightness. I felt like I was finally being heard. He asked me to go and return the next day for us to talk again. I didn't understand it. But eventually I had no choice than to get up and go. My friend told me not to give up, because that is how the man works. The next day, as he told us, I went to him again. And to tell you, I was shocked to my core. He explained to me that the things I have been experiencing, they aren't just random. He said it was as if my spirit has been tied to someone else's. He then asked me if I have ever considered that maybe I was being held back spiritually. I was confused, and so he tried coming clearer to me. That was when he revealed everything about the rituals I have been doing with the prophet and their consequences in my life. He then told me that the reason why I was not getting any proposals that will lead to marriage was that the prophet himself in the realm of the spirit is my husband. And he always pushes any man that comes my way away from me, so that he can have me to himself. At first, I couldn't wrap my mind around what he was saying. How could this man, this person who I had trusted so deeply, be responsible for the pain I had been feeling all these years? He was supposed to help me, not harm me. But something in this man's words made sense. He didn't accuse the prophet outright, but he helped me open my eyes to the possibility that there was something darker at play. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a choice. This man's approach wasn't about control. He didn't tell me what to do. Instead, he helped me find my own answers. And just as things began to feel lighter, just as I began to regain my strength, something happened that I wasn't prepared for. You see, I had been attending the church faithfully for years, and the prophet had been a constant figure in my life. So, when I returned from my sessions with this old man, something felt off. The atmosphere at the church was tense, as if a storm was brewing. I didn't understand it at first, but I soon felt it in the prophet's eyes. I remember coming to the church one Sunday morning, hoping for a fresh start, but as I walked in, I noticed something unusual. The prophet's face was cold, distant, and his eyes, they weren't filled with the usual warmth. Instead, they were sharp, almost accusing. He didn't greet me with his usual smile. In fact, He barely even acknowledged my presence. I stood there, trying to make sense of it. But as the service went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The prophet avoided looking at me, and when he did, it was only for a moment before quickly turning his gaze elsewhere. It wasn't like him. So, after the service, I approached him, hoping to speak with him, to maybe ask him about what was going on. But when I came close, he turned his back to me without saying a word. That's when I felt it, an invisible barrier between us. I was confused, hurt, and more than a little scared. The next few days were even worse. When I tried to reach out to him for advice, he wouldn't take my calls. He didn't respond to my messages. I felt like I was being shut out, like I had done something wrong. And yet, I hadn't done anything differently. I had always followed his guidance. I had been a loyal follower, a believer in everything he told me. It wasn't until one afternoon, when I tried to speak with him face to face, that I understood why he was treating me this way. He asked me why I went to someone else for solution. He told me that he has seen what I have been doing. Then, he said something that shocked me. He said that, "You think you can find solutions outside of me, outside of my guidance." I had never seen him like this before. The warmth, the kindness that once radiated from him had disappeared, replaced by a harsh, bitter anger. He said that he was going to marry me. I was going to be his, but I have gone behind his back. My dear, that moment, it occurred to me that the prophet had never cared about my well-being. He didn't want to help me, he wanted to control me. He wanted me bound to him, spiritually and emotionally. He didn't want me to find freedom. He didn't want me to have my own path. That day was the day that I walked away from him for good. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, mixed with grief. I was leaving behind a life I had known for years, a life that I had believed in with all my heart. But I also knew, deep down, that I could never go back. The trust one had placed in him had been broken, and my spirit could no longer carry the weight of his control. I stopped going to the church. I couldn't keep fighting for a life that wasn't my own. So, I went to the man, and with his help and guidance he led me through a series of directions to cleanse me from all the things I have been in bondage to. What shocked me was that he told me that, anytime I am about to start any of the things he would tell me, I should start it with a prayer, and if I believe in Jesus, I should make him a point of contact in my mind and heart before I go ahead with anything he would tell me to do. Leaving the prophet wasn't easy for me. I can tell you that it felt like a betrayal, but I had to fight for my freedom, spiritually, emotionally, and financially. I began to heal, piece by piece. It wasn't just about finding answers, it was about reclaiming myself. So, my dear, I'm telling you this story because, somewhere out there, there might be someone who feels as lost and trapped as I did. It doesn't matter how many people tell you that they know what's best for you, no one has the right to control your life. You are the only one who can walk your path. That is something this old man has made me understand, and I can tell you today that he is right in any way. You see, it was a long and painful journey, but I learned that sometimes the most difficult part is recognizing when you've been misled. So, I tell you today, don't be afraid to question the people you trust, even those who claim to have your best interest at heart. Your life is your own to live, and no one, not even the most trusted spiritual figure, should ever take that away from you. I wish I had known sooner, but I'm grateful for the lessons. I'm not perfect, and I'm still growing, but I'm no longer trapped in someone else's plan for my life. I beg you to trust yourself. Your intuition is your true guide. Thank you.
Don't forget to please subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload. All I will say again is that, stay grounded, stay prayerful, and stay vigilant. Never let anyone, no matter their title or position, control your path, your choices, or your spirit. Trust yourself, your intuition, and your own connection to what is true and right for you. Remember, your worth is not tied to anyone else's approval or expectations. Sometimes, stepping away from the things that hold you back is the first step toward finding your true freedom. Thank you for watching, and remember, life is too short to make choices you regret forever. We shall meet again in the next video.